been down, it feels like, for days on end, and we cannot get it to work. So we are live straight off of YouTube this time. So thank you so much for subscribing to the show and jumping back on. And today is all about the NFL draft in review. So we got the one, the only Tubby. He's been scouring all the post-draft details. He's got rankings, all the things. And so today we're going to ask a couple questions, and we're going to get his opinions on some of the teams. But Tubby, how are you feeling about the draft? It's draft season's over. I mean, are you sad?
Well, absolutely, I'm sad. I always want draft season. I want draft season all year round. But I mean, I guess I can have that, but it's kind of hard to evaluate players in the off season, college football. So we'll manage for a few months.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and give you a bit of draft news for next year. Who's your number one overall pick going into next year's draft? You got anybody that's standing out? Arch Manning? No. Mm-hmm.
No, I in good conscience can't put Arch Manning that high right now,
Okay,
just because he started 2 games.
That's enough, man.
No, not even close.
Mitchell Trubisky started like a game and a half, and he got pick number 2.
Mitchell Trubisky started 13 games.
Yeah, okay? It's like nothing.
He started a full season. So the fact, I get that the potential is there for Arch Manning, but I need to see it, and I need to see it against good competition, not the competition he started against this year. Because the one game that we watched him play against good competition, Georgia, he was awful.
Yeah, he did get handled.
Yeah.
Put in a box, didn't get to do anything that he wanted to. So, well, let's start, Tubby. I know we'll eventually get to the big name that dropped the most historic drop ever when it comes to NFL draft day stuff. We can get to that, I think, towards the end, because I really, really want to know, when you look at this draft class, it was a really, really depth-filled draft class. A lot of teams had a lot of needs, and who were the biggest winners? Maybe your top 3 teams that you saw.
So we'll start at number 3. I put 5 down, but we'll start at number 3. I got a couple honorable mentions if we have time, but number 3, I think it was the New England Patriots. They filled so many holes, and what they did was they built around their young quarterback. They started off right off the bat with my number 3 player in the draft, and that was Will Campbell. Immediate starter at left tackle for a team that had an awful offensive line last year. You immediately throw him in there at left tackle. Then you turn around and you draft Travion Henderson in the 2nd round. Now you got that pass catching, home run hitting running back out of the backfield to pair with the battering ram of Ramondre
Stevenson. Yeah.
Then Kyle Williams in the 3rd round. He was such an underrated wide receiver. Coming from that air raid offense, teams can get a little, antsy about him because, they don't usually transition too well to the NFL. But he had some of the best film I've watched, and was one of those underrated, under the radar wide receivers, and has really, showed out throughout the process going up to it. Then you flip it over to the day 2 when you go and get Joshua Farmer and Braden Swinson, late in the draft. I thought they did a really good job at filling the holes that they needed to, and then building around their young player, and they really built from the inside out, and which is what we've talked about for the last few years. It's the way to go now in the NFL, where we're seeing the transition in the running game.
Yeah, and I like the look of what does, instead of having maybe a sophomore slump that you typically see with these second-year quarterbacks, what does this set Drake May up to be in his 2nd year? That much better. The Patriots, they've been down the last couple of years. Maybe this is the start of something that is kind of the Patriot way again.
Yeah, I think it is. I love the hire of Mike Vrabel. It's a year late. I think if they would have done it last year, we could have seen the team taking a bigger step forward this year with what we know he's known for, and that's building continuity within the locker room.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. We got another. What's your number 2 draft?
Number 2, I think, is going to be a controversial one, because there's people that weren't so big on the move that they made, but that's going to be the New York Giants. And I know,
wow, I did not see that.
And like I said, I know people are going to be, they should have drafted Shador. Well, I had Jackson Dart as my number 2 quarterback, so I was absolutely fine with them going and getting Jackson Dart, moving back up in the draft. So you get Abdul Carter, who was the number 2 player in the draft for me, in in the first round. Then you turn
Mhm.
around and you get Jackson Dart, who I believe can be their future quarterback, and then get Darius Alexander, one of those under the radar defensive linemen that a lot of people didn't know about from Toledo, who just really blew up. Get Cam Scadaboo, who, yeah, maybe he's not the fastest guy, but that dude is going to go out there and he's going to play his heart out for you. He was the sole
Yeah.
reason why Arizona State made it to the playoffs. And you're not looking at him going, oh, he's going to be our number one running back. You got Tyrone Tracy, who was really good when he had a chance, with the Giants. Then you
Mhm.
go out and they got one of the biggest steals in the draft, I believe, in Marcus Bowe from Purdue, the guard. He dropped down the board. He was projected a second round pick. He had a knee injury that kind of flared up at the end,
Yeah.
and it really dropped him down the board. So you get him in the fifth round, absolute steal. Like I said, everything they did, I gave him an A. I thought that they absolutely killed this draft.
Yeah, well, and the one thing, let me just throw this random wild card question. When it comes to the Cam
Hmm.
Scatterboo, he's kind of been an underdog his whole career, and now he goes to the biggest market for the
Hmm.
better team in that market. Do you
Yeah.
think that that could potentially be a learning curve for Cam?
I mean, I don't know so much about a learning curve. I think him dropping in the draft and people underestimating it's going to keep that chip on his shoulder.
Yeah,
I think it's going to make him try even harder, go out there and play even harder. Uh, like I said, I don't ever envision him being the number one running back, and for the
right.
Giants, but
Yeah.
he's going to be someone that's going to go out there and he's going to do everything he can to get that inch, that half a yard, or whatever he needs, whatever the team needs. He's going to go out there and do it.
He's the Baker Mayfield of running backs.
He is. He really
I
is.
feel like I took the words right out of your mouth on
Yeah.
that one. All right, well, all right. So we got one team left. Who had the best draft, Tubby?
To me, this one, it was so close to an A plus, and I thought every move they've made was incredible, and it's a team that has an incredible front office, and that's the Seattle Seahawks. I
Wow. Okay.
absolutely loved what they did. You go out, you draft Gray Zabel. You've had issues with that offensive line the last few years with injuries, especially in the interior. To me, you got the number one interior offensive lineman, Gray Zabel, who can play left guard, right guard, center, and he even played tackle in college. So if in emergency something happens, you can push him out to one of those, tackle positions. Do you want him playing left tackle all the time? Absolutely not. But
No.
then they went out and got one of my favorite players in the draft in the second
Yep.
round.
And Nick.
Nicky Manwari. The fact that he dropped all the way to the second round absolutely blew my mind because I had him as a top 15 player, and he just kept on dropping and kept on dropping, and they pulled the trigger, and I absolutely loved it. Elijah Arroyo, another one that
Mhm.
I was surprised he lasted as long as he did. They went out and grabbed him, that pass catching tight end who averaged 16.9 yards per catch last year
It's pretty
at
good.
Miami.
It's really good.
Go out, get him, and then we know I'm not the biggest fan of Jalen Milrow, but I think in the third round where they got him, I had him graded as a third to fourth round pick. And so you get him in the third round. You sign Sam Darnold for a few years, let him sit, let him learn. Maybe
Mhm.
they can develop him into a better passer. And now you got your quarterback of the future potentially. And then Riley Mills, the kid from Notre Dame, was supposed to be a second round pick. That entry in the national championship game absolutely tanked his draft stock. You go out and get a guy that was potentially a second round pick in the fourth, fifth round, absolutely great. And then Torrey Horton was one of my favorite players in this draft,
Mhm.
wide receiver. He was
Yeah.
overlooked. He really reminds me of a much taller Tyler Lockett, who they just released this year.
Mhm.
And so now you replace him. You got two, weapons on the offense now after getting rid of DK and getting rid of Lockett to, pair with Jackson Smith and Jigba, and then Damian Martinez late in the draft. This running back draft was so deep that we saw so many good running backs make it to those final three, rounds of the draft, and
Mhm.
they go out and get a guy like Damian Martinez, who maybe didn't put up the eye popping numbers everyone expected for him at Miami, but he was sharing time with another running back in the backfield. So it kind of dropped his numbers. He still rushed for over 1,000 yards. And then Ricky White was another wide receiver, late seventh round pick. I thought was an incredible flyer on the kid that before this last season, he was projected as close to a third round pick as a wide
Yeah,
receiver.
middle, yeah.
Yeah, doesn't have the top end speed, but the guy knows how to get open. So I thought they absolutely killed it. The only thing that I would have done different was instead of drafting Bryce Cable Dew from Kansas, I would have drafted Logan Brown from Kansas. That would have gave me the A plus. I'm not a big fan of Cable Dew, so I was a little. I thought it was a little high. I thought he was going to go undrafted, and so that if they would have done that, would have been an A plus home run smash of the draft.
Yeah, and might as well with the Jalen Milroe, the 3rd round. Like,
Yeah.
the way the NFL is right now, and
Hmm.
maybe it is the right long-term play for them, but, they obviously he shouldn't start this year,
No.
barring any massive injuries, but it gives him time to slowly develop and, it's a new
Yeah.
regime there, so we're gonna see how that goes. I love the top 3. I was surprised that Seahawks made number 1. I thought maybe they'd be an honorable mention, but they got some of the guys that you really, really liked,
I'll
going
just
into
give
the
you
draft.
the honorable mentions real quick. Number 4 was the Kansas City Chiefs. Absolutely love what
Thank
they did.
you. That's
They
what I'm
they
wearing right now.
they always find a way to draft really well, and Josh Simmons, Omar Norman Lott was one of my favorite defensive linemen. Undersized guy, but the
Mhm.
guy knows how to get in the backfield. Jalen Royal to me was their steal of the draft going in the 5th round. To me, I had him closer to a 3rd, back into the 2nd round. I was surprised he dropped as far. I think him playing at Utah State really hurt his draft stock.
Mhm.
Then number 5 was the Baltimore Ravens. They're 2 teams that
Dude,
always draft well
yes.
and
And they always draft
somehow
late.
yeah, and always have these players fall in their lap. And like, the Baltimore Ravens getting Mike Green late 2nd round was absolutely insane.
Oh, no. I 100% I figured they wouldn't make your top, but it's hard to get the top draft slots when you're in the back half, but to be
Mhm.
honorable mentions for both those 2 teams,
Yeah.
watch out. I mean, Baltimore still looks really good.
Yep.
Obviously, the Chiefs are rebuilding retooling, same thing
Yeah.
that they did when they lost to the Buccaneers in the Super Bowl a couple years ago, so watch out, everybody. I'm just saying, KC, just watch out. They still got a great team.
Yep.
All right, well, let's move on. You had the top tier. Who absolutely bombed this draft?
So at number 3, worst drafts, I got San Francisco. I thought they absolutely swung and missed. I'm not saying that I don't like the players that they drafted. I like Michael Williams. I think he can develop into a good pass rusher. I don't know if he's going to be a dominant pass rusher. I think he'll be
Yeah.
a good, solid one. He kind of reminds me of like Trayvon Walker, where he's not going to have the massive you know sack numbers. Walker did have a much better year this year, so he's a little bit raw but super athletic.
Mhm.
But my biggest problem was you waited into the 6th round to draft offensive lineman, and you drafted Connor Colby, which I mean, a decent player, but I don't think it's anything to write home about. You lost so much on the offensive line. You got Trent Williams, who is aging and is probably going to
Yeah.
retire in the next year or so. I think that you really missed the mark here on a lot of what they did. They should have drafted offensive line early. I get that you lost a lot of defensive players, but I just don't think that they really hit the marks like they needed to. You drafted Alfred Collins, which I like Alfred Collins, but I much would rather have CJ West like they did in the 4th round, 5th round, compared to Alfred Collins in the 2nd when they could have drafted an offensive lineman there, offensive tackle or something to replace some of those guys they lost.
Yeah. Right now, the 49ers remind me, and I don't think it's a fair comparison, but expectations versus what's going on, they remind me a lot of the Baltimore Orioles. Like,
Yeah.
guys, what are you there? It was obvious this was the need, and you all went over
Hmm.
here and you didn't even do a good job with that part. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not surprised that they made the list. Who's your number 2?
Number 2 is going to be the Indianapolis Colts. I
Okay.
I love the Tyler Warren pick. I love JT Tuimoloau. I love DJ Gidden, but my biggest problem is it's the same thing what we saw from the San Francisco 49ers. You lost 3 starters on your offensive line, and you didn't do anything except for one pick in the 4th round to address that offensive line. With the quarterback troubles that you have, your biggest thing is protect that quarterback. You got a run
Mhm.
game. You got Jonathan Taylor. You get DJ Giddens to throw in there, but you did really nothing to address the offensive line because I'm not really even that high on Jalen Travis. I had him as a 6th round projected player, so he went a little bit higher than I expected. I just feel like they really missed the mark and they're not doing a great job right now of trying to build up around what they have. I mean, we know they have
Yeah.
quarterback questions, and they're
Yeah.
going to have those
Massive questions
quarterback.
there.
Yeah, they're going to have those
It,
questions again this year.
yeah, and what would have been a better like one pick? Maybe is it the QB position that they should have done that they should have addressed better in this draft, or is it they need to be playing for next year?
I definitely I don't think that they should have went after a quarterback in this draft just because. I mean, maybe if they felt like it, like in the fourth round or something like that, took a swing on Shador Sanders or something like that, I wouldn't have been mad about that. But
Yes.
I think the potential for next year's quarterback class is much higher than this one. And so maybe they're waiting and saying, okay, we're going to give Anthony Richardson one more shot. If he flops, okay, we'll just go ahead and draft one next year. But
Yeah.
I just would have much rather seen them try to address that offensive line and start building now instead of waiting a year to start trying to build around the new quarterback.
I agree. The fact that Sanders, we're gonna get a little bit to this, was available for them that late, and they weren't having a productive draft for some of
Yeah,
the needs of a team. What weren't they 8-9 last year? Like they've been a decent team.
yeah. I mean, they
8-9
drafted what?
last year
Yeah, yeah,
in a winnable division. I'd say ish.
yeah,
With
yeah.
Houston who underperformed. You should have gone after Sanders because he's the opposite of Anthony Richardson. I get that, but maybe
Definitely is.
that's a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, all right, who had the worst drafts? I feel like I know what it is.
Do you?
I feel if it's one of two teams.
Who do you think I put?
I think it should be the Saints.
It was not the Saints.
Oh, okay, then is it Cleveland?
The the
Cleveland has
Saints,
no idea what they're doing.
Cleveland, and the Saints are honorable mentions just because
Mm,
of the fiasco of what they did.
yeah.
But I did have one draft that was the worst out of all of them, and that is the Miami Dolphins.
Okay, that would yeah. I honorable mention would for sure had that one, but yeah. Okay, I'll
Yeah,
take it.
I honestly don't know what they did.
They got Quinn
I
Ewers,
I,
man.
I was thoroughly confused by everything that they did. I get you need some defensive line help. I don't think Kenneth Grant was the option. I had Kenneth Grant more as a late first, early second round pick. I like the Jonas Savaiinaea pick. I think he's a great guard, but other than that, maybe I'm okay with the Ollie Gordon because you did lose Raheem Mostert, and it gives you kind of a different type of running back than you've had. Doesn't have the top end speed, it's kind of more of a bruiser, so I think that'll help. But what you did in the secondary, I mean, you're still trying to trade Jalen Ramsey.
Yeah,
You lost Javon Holland. Your other corners really haven't done anything. Yeah, you drafted Cam Smith last year, but he was hurt all season. He has injury concerns. That was one of the big concerns for him going into the draft last year. And I just feel like they swung and missed hard. I gave them a D plus. This was by far to me the worst draft out of all of them.
yeah. It was it. I didn't know that. I mean, I agree with you. I mean, it's
Hmm.
hard to disagree on any of these five that were pretty rough. Um, what? So, just your honorable mentions. Give me one reason why they made your list.
I have three honorable mentions, and
Okay.
it's the Pittsburgh Steelers, the New Orleans Saints, and the Cleveland Browns. And can you guess why?
Well, the Saints don't know what they're doing. The Steelers are still waiting on Aaron Rodgers, and that's causing massive problems. And the Cleveland, if you're gonna get Gabriel in the third, which is a stretch, 2 years ago we said
Yeah.
Gabriel's cap was to be a QB coach. Kellen Moore,
Hmm.
let's go, be a QB coach. He could be great. Here he is in the third round, and then you go out and you draft with your last pick in the fifth round. You get Shadur Sanders, so now you have a mess in
Yeah.
you. It's just an absolute mess. And think
And
about what that team could have been had they just kept Baker.
exactly. And that's what all of them have in common is that they absolutely missed on the quarterbacks that they drafted.
Yeah.
I'm not a Howard fan.
Oh,
The fact that there were some
yeah.
people having him projected in the second, third round blew my mind. The same thing with New Orleans. I'm not as kind of slow
No,
fan. He is older than 12 quarterbacks in the
I
NFL right now,
know, dude. It is
and
insane. He'll
never
be 30
hasn't.
when his contract is up.
Yeah, hasn't been healthy throughout his career, and same thing with exactly what you said with the Cleveland Browns. Just think, you don't trade that pick. You trade the number two pick. You have Shador Sanders and Travis Hunter. I don't mind Mason Graham. I love Mason Graham. He was a top five
Yeah,
player for me. But you keep that, yeah, you got a first round pick next year. So you can't argue too much about that because I think next year's draft,
good
especially if
value.
they do feel like they need a quarterback, if they don't see anything moving forward, at least next year the quarterback, but then it just makes everything look even worse because You drafted Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round. Then you turn around and draft Shedeur Sanders, and now you just got this mess in the quarterback room where you got old Joe Flacco, you got a bust of Kenny Pickett, then you got Dylan Gabriel, who we thought
Yeah,
who yeah, a couple years ago we didn't know if he would get drafted. If he did, it was going to be late. Getting drafted in the 3rd round, I had him as a 6th round pick,
he's a
and
reach.
then I mean, you can't be mad that they drafted Shedeur Sanders, but it's just the situation that they put these guys in, and just the team alone is just
Yep,
absolutely the most
yep.
Cleveland thing you can think of.
Yeah, what a joke. This
Yeah.
I sell the team, new ownership, everything. Maybe even you know what? Honestly, I'm sorry, Cleveland. Maybe even move the team. That might help. I think South Carolina needs a team, or I don't care. Just pick a team. I don't care. Pick a place.
Throw a dart at the board and see where it sticks.
Oh, Oklahoma State's getting a football team. Let's go.
All right.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Well, let's go through three quick highlights. Day one, best pick. Day two, best pick, and day three, best pick. What do you got?
So day one, I think the home run pick was Will Campbell to the New England Patriots. Like I said,
Yeah.
they knew what they needed to do. They went out and got the player that they needed. Day two, it is so hard because there was two of my favorite players got drafted in the
Okay.
2nd round. That was Trey Amos and Nicky Manowari. So it's kind of like, how do I pick? Because they were two of my favorite players when I watched the film.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to give the edge to Washington and Trey Amos because I think it
Wow.
fit a bigger need, because the corner play from them has been atrocious. We saw them trade for Marcus Lattimore. He hardly played. And so we saw him a couple of years ago draft Emmanuel Forbes, and he has been awful. So I think the Trey Amos pick was
Yeah.
right on the dot, and the fact that they got him late in the 2nd round, I was very surprised about.
Yeah.
And then I've already mentioned this. My favorite pick from day three was Marcus Bowe for the New York Giants. Like I said, I had him as a 2nd round projected player going to
Yeah.
the 5th just because of a slight knee injury that he sustained throughout the process. Was kind of crazy to me.
Yeah. I am surprised at some of these players that do drop as far as they do with an injury, because
Yeah.
these are contracts that are for 4 or 5 years if they're a first round contract.
Hmm.
It for such a cheap price, like, and the upside is
Yeah.
still there. And you gotta bet the best, the absolute, and like rehab facilities and trainers and all that stuff are gonna be at the NFL level. So
Hmm.
why don't you think your team could help these guys get back? So that's when I am surprised, but hey, I'm taking
Yeah.
advantage of it. Worst picks: day one, day two, day three.
So day one for me was the Dolphins. We talked about it.
Hmm.
I'm not the biggest fan of Grant, especially that high. I thought was a really big swing and a miss. Day two, Cleveland Browns, Dylan Gabriel. Sorry, I love Dylan
Yeah,
Gabriel.
it's reach.
What he did for Oklahoma football was
Thank
incredible,
goodness.
and we thank him for that. But the fact that he went that high and then you turn around and drafted another quarterback was another big issue. And then the last one is going to be Will Howard, because I thought they should have drafted Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah. Do you have any thoughts on Shedeur Sanders? The reason why it happened, or anything you were reading about?
I mean, I do think that a lot of it has to do with his personality. A lot of what I heard was, and what I've read is from his interviews were so bad. There was multiple teams that came in and just said it was the worst interview we've ever had. And when it came to draft, and then
Okay.
I know there is a lot of questions with his arm strength. Can he make those window throws in the NFL,
Hmm.
especially on the deep outs and stuff like that? He tends to float the ball a lot, and in the NFL, that's not going to get the job done if that's all you have. And
Yeah.
also, there was the question about his pocket presence. Did he have was the sacks, was some of it on him because he was trying to create
Yeah.
too much? But we also know that the offensive line for Colorado was god awful the last 2 years.
Yeah, and the offense, it was so one-dimensional, of course.
Yeah.
Like, so here's the thing, I think the best quarterbacks in this draft, I like Jackson Dart, but I'm gonna say Cam Ward and Shedeur
Hmm.
Sanders, what they have done every year that they play at the college level has improved. Like, they've gotten better at some capacity, and I would say Cam Ward started in the FCS level, moved up
Mhm.
to the Pac-12, then moved over to the ACC, and he just every single time he got
Yep.
better. So that's why I believe like he has the capabilities, the talent to do at this next level. And Shadur Sanders literally has the mental capacity to be an NFL quarterback. We've seen him. Yeah, maybe he rubs people the wrong way. I get that, but I think if he can find a way to get out of Cleveland, be great. But
Yeah.
this is like the worst possible landing spot for him was Cleveland.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the Steelers should have drafted him because what didn't make sense to me was they were talking about the Steelers were contemplating Derek Harmon or Shador Sanders in the first round. You drafted Derek Harmon, so that means the logical pick in the
Yep.
second round, if he's
Are we still
still
there?
on the board, is Shador Sanders.
Yeah.
And then they just kept on passing him over,
Dude.
passing him over, and passing him over, and then you end up with Will Howard, who I believe will probably end up either in Canada or in the UFL somewhere.
Yeah.
I
Wait.
don't see him as an NFL quarterback.
No.
I don't. Yeah, they say, oh, he's a winner. Okay, cool. That was college.
Okay, cool. Yeah, 100%. And here's my thought, like, for Pittsburgh specifically, you're telling me that you'll have George Pickens, and you'll have Deontay Johnson, and
Yeah.
Antonio Brown, and you'll have all of these, what I would say is bigger personalities in the NFL
Hmm.
just world, and you can handle it, and you can still make the playoffs, and you don't wanna have Shadur Sanders.
Shador
Well, I guess
Sanders.
it's because I feel like it has to be an Aaron Rodgers thing, like, I keep texting them and saying, "Hey," all this stuff. Absolutely
But
ridiculous to me.
Aaron Rodgers has no years left to me. I think he
Oh,
needs
yeah,
to
he's
retire.
minus
And so,
3 right now.
yeah, so the fact that you are basing your season on whether or not Aaron Rodgers is going to be there is absolutely insane because you have to build for the future. That's what the draft is about. So why would
Mhm.
you wait? And why wouldn't you take the guy that you were contemplating in the
I know.
first round, in the second round, or even the third round, or even the fourth round? Makes no sense. And that's where I don't know how much, whatever it was, but I feel like if you are a coach and you cannot handle that type of character or whatever you want to call it, then you shouldn't be a coach because there's absolutely a difference in college football and NFL because you go from coaching kids to coaching men. Well, now you got to be able to adapt with every personality in the NFL. And the fact that teams are like, oh well, he's got too much of a personality. Blah, blah. I get that it can become a locker room issue, but we're talking about a kid who can mature
Yeah.
and has shown that he can be a good quarterback, especially in the crunch times. We have seen him, make some incredible plays in the late in the game, and that's where I'm just like, like I said, I'm not the biggest Shador fan. I have my questions, but the fact that he slid as far as he
Yeah.
did into the fifth round is crazy because people are worried about his personality.
Yeah, and Mike Tomlin is probably the best coach at doing what you just said.
Exactly, and that's what just makes me it blows my mind even more that they didn't take him because he has dealt with those. You mentioned all those guys. Le'Veon Bell, Cam
Yeah.
Hayward. They
Yep.
aren't the most sane people. They are
Yeah.
out there personalities, and he managed them. And, yeah, we saw how the Le'Veon Bell thing and the Antonio Brown thing finished out. But you know what they did? They cut the head off before it got too bad, and he knows when to do that. So why wouldn't you bring the kid in, try to get him mature, and let him sit for a year or so, and just mature and learn the
Yeah.
game of football. And you didn't do that, and it absolutely blows my mind that he fell that
Yeah.
far in the draft.
Yeah. Well, it was a pretty epic. I mean, there will be a documentary about it or something, or
Yeah.
long YouTube video that someone's going to do later on just to go
Hmm.
over it. But um, great draft season. We're going to have more
Yeah.
coverage when it comes to the NFL and college football as we roll into summer. Believe it or not, we are. It's May, which means June is around the corner. You
Oh
might as
boy.
well go ahead and start talking about football because it is here. And here at the W Sports Podcast, I know we're live today, but we do weekly videos on football, weekly videos on baseball. So if you have not already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Join us with every single chance. You can go ahead and put in the comment section. I know Tubby, he rated a bunch of these, and he went through
Hmm.
every single team, all 32 teams. He has a ranking, he has best practices or like best picks, all those things.
Hmm.
So if you didn't hear about your team, go ahead, put that in the comment section. I promise you, Tubby's going to respond with all the details about that. We're grateful for each and every one of you hanging out with us. I know you all were in the live room, whatever you want to call it, here on YouTube. We will hopefully be back to our normal setup, but if not, we will be back here again probably early next week talking some baseball. So see y'all later.
See ya.